being dropped into a high school calculus class where you don't speak a single word of the language. For nearly 10% of the European Union's population born outside its borders, this isn't some thought experiment. I mean, it's just Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a massive demographic shift for sure.
Right. So welcome to this deep dive into the sources you shared with us. We were looking specifically at the new UinD report, which is Understanding Inclusion and Diversity. And just a quick note for you listening, we are looking at some politically charged source material today, but we never take sides. We are just here to impartially report on the ideas presented in these sources.
Exactly. We're just the messengers here.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because integrating diverse students isn't just about putting them in a temporary waiting room until they catch up. You know, it's like trying to update a smartphone's operating system by just buying it a new phone case.
That is a great way to put it. You aren't changing the internal code at all.
Exactly. You're just decorating the exterior. To really make this work, we have to redesign the entire house.
And what's really fascinating in the data here is how it completely upends our common sense. You would think a waiting room approach, like putting kids in separate language classes, would be this safe harbor. But structurally, it is failing across the board.
Wait, but from a purely logistical standpoint, putting non-native speakers in a separate room to learn the language first just makes sense. Why are you saying that's a trap? I mean, we've got standard models like Germany's Willkommensklassen or Greece's afternoon shifts. It sounds highly protective.
It definitely sounds protective until you look at the actual mechanisms. Take those afternoon shifts in Greece, the DYE program. Refugee students use the school buildings from 2 to 6 p.m.
Right, which is long after the local students have gone home.
Precisely. They are living completely parallel lives with virtually zero interaction with the host community. It inadvertently creates these educational ghettos.
Wow. Which just signals to these kids that they are temporary second-class members.
Exactly.
Ah, I see. And then, after a year of total isolation, the system just drops them into a fast-paced mainstream classroom. You aren't protecting them. You're pushing them off a support cliff without a parachute.
Right, a massive support cliff. And that steep drop-off is why the alternative is so vital. We need to build continuous bridges through supported mainstreaming instead.
Like the Pictes project in Turkey that you highlighted in your notes, right? Transitioning over 750,000 Syrian students directly into public schools.
Yes, and Portugal's inclusive learning communities as well.
So what does this all mean? How can a teacher possibly manage that massive level of diversity in a single room without feeling completely overwhelmed?
Well, it comes down to fundamentally changing the classroom structure itself. One brilliant, evidence-based solution they highlight is interactive groups.
How does that actually work?
You take a diverse classroom and break it into small groups. Then you bring in adult volunteers from the community, like parents, retirees, university students.
Oh, wow. So extra hands on deck.
Exactly, but the adults don't actually teach. Their job is solely to facilitate peer-to-peer dialogue. It massively lowers the adult-to-student ratio.
That is so smart, and I know it ties perfectly into the dialogic literary gatherings from the report. You have these students who might barely speak the host language, sitting in a circle discussing classic literature like Homer.
Right. And it works because they share what a paragraph means to their own lives rather than focusing on grammar.
Valuing their lived experience over linguistic technicality, that must just skyrocket their academic self-esteem.
It really does. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, these brilliant classroom strategies will completely fail if we ignore the invisible structural walls waiting right outside the stall doors.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. In your research, you noted how the digital divide isn't just about handing a kid a laptop anymore. It has evolved into a usage gap.
Exactly. Even if they have a device, they might lack the digital navigation skills to actively learn with it.
Right, like when non-native speakers use educational AI tools, the algorithms often flag their phrasing as incorrect simply because it doesn't map perfectly to native speaker training data. They get technically locked out.
Precisely. And the hurdles aren't just digital, they are psychological and material too. A major hidden barrier here is what the report calls trauma helplessness among educators.
How does that actually play out in a real classroom?
Imagine a student who has fled displacement. Under high stress, they might experience a trauma-induced cognitive freeze.
Oh, I see.
But a teacher without specific trauma-informed training often misinterprets that silent freeze as defiance, or a disciplinary issue.
Right, we're expecting teachers to be the primary brokers of belonging,
Yeah.
but we aren't giving them the structural tools to understand what they're even looking at.
Exactly. And you also definitely can't feel like you belong if you can't afford the bus fare to get to school in the first place.
Yeah, material realities matter.
Belonging has a highly material dimension. Turkey tackled this socioeconomic exclusion head-on with conditional cash transfers.
Providing bi-monthly payments to vulnerable families directly tied to school attendance, right?
You got it. Because you simply cannot integrate a student who is structurally excluded by poverty.
So, for you listening, we are really talking about a massive paradigm shift here. It's moving away from a temporary welcome culture to a permanent post-arrival culture.
Right, a holistic hybrid model, pairing immediate academic inclusion with targeted in-class language scaffolding and wraparound psychosocial support.
And this isn't just about school administration. This is really about the future stability, equity, and democratic resilience of our diverse societies.
Because the data clearly shows that integration requires transforming the institution itself, rather than trying to fix a perceived deficit in the student. Diversity has to be utilized as a dynamic resource.
Which leaves you with this to chew on. If true integration means rewriting the institution's operating system rather than forcing people into a waiting room, what cultural intelligence and dynamic resources are we actively ignoring in our own modern workplaces by demanding assimilation rather than true inclusion?